Great. All right, so we're all set. And if you want to go enjoy your evening,
All
you can.
right, I will do so. Have
All
a
right.
lovely meeting, and I hope your speaker arrives soon.
I'm sure she will.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Ah, all right. Well, this works out. More people coming in. Hi, Barb.
Hi, I couldn't find the link to get to the meeting, but
Oh,
I found something to get me here. So
very good. Mine came at this, my reminders from Club Express usually come about 4:30 in the morning.
I got one from somebody. I thought it was said from Jane or something, but then I clicked on it. It says you have to register for this meeting, and I've already registered for the meeting.
That's very weird. Okay,
It is
Lisa's
weird.
coming
So I
in.
went back in and re-registered, and then finally sent me a link.
Okay,
But
cool.
I'm here. Thank you. I'm glad I'm not crashing the party.
Oh, no, you're not. You're not.
The party hasn't even gotten started, right?
No, Lisa had a car problem.
Oh no.
And there she is.
Oh, hello all.
Well, she's in her car with her problem.
I was driving up 14th to get home in time to set up, and then my 2007 Prius just stopped. Power out, nothing in the middle lane of 14th.
Oh my word.
So my
Oh
husband just brought me this car, and he's taking over that car so I can be here.
Well, thank
Bless
you.
his heart. Bless
Yes.
his heart.
Big thank you
This
to
is
Steve
on the road with Lisa.
Yes, really, really.
I'm just gonna stay right here.
Well, I'm gonna get started. Let me welcome all of you to our Education Task Force meeting for the League of Women Voters. We're happy to have you all here. And I don't have any of the usual boilerplate typed up in front of me about the fact that we are a nonpartisan organization. And we don't support candidates or political parties, but we do get involved in issues. And education is one of those issues that we are very much involved in in Colorado. And I'm very excited that Lisa Weil is here to be our speaker today. Lisa is driven by a belief that a vital, equitable public education system is the foundation for individual success, family well-being, thriving communities, a strong democracy, a just society, and a vibrant economy. Lisa is I'm doing two things. I'm letting people in at the same time. So a product of the Greeley District's 6 schools and a proud mother of 2 DPS graduates. Lisa is currently the executive director of Great Education Colorado, which she co-founded with 4 fellow preschool moms back in 2003. Before diving into public education advocacy, Lisa was a public interest attorney and a political consultant and served on staffs of a number of elected officials, including Colorado State Senator Tim Wirth and Governor Roy Romer. More recently, Lisa hosted the Creating Welcoming Schools Action Summit that Andrea Wilkins and I attended, and that brought together a diverse group of educators from across Colorado. She has been working to create a public education advocates network, which she will no doubt describe to you tonight. And finally, Lisa was appointed to the Legislative School Finance Task Force that is currently wrestling with issues like how much it actually costs to educate a child in the diverse school districts with such diverse needs across the state. And I'm very interested in you giving us your input on that as well. So welcome, Lisa. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I am very happy to be here in my car on Downing Avenue, at Downing Street. So thank you for that very kind introduction. And what I'd really like to do today is give big picture context, both about grade ed and about education in Colorado, and then really have a conversation and make sure that what you hear about is what you most want to hear about. So I am going to share my screen. In the meantime, I'm thinking about what happens when the sun goes down. Um, I will be able to see you, but you may not be able to see me. But hopefully, you're looking at my do. Let's see. Here we go.
Great.
All right. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. And by the way, on the computer I'm on, I can't see anything in the chat. So Kathy or whoever, if you want to just ask me, stop me, whatever, please do, because I can't see it.
Will do.
So we're talking about public school funding. We're talking about public education. What we're really talking about is the institution that is most effective and has the greatest impact on our democracy, our economy, as you all know, and that's why it's one of the highest priorities of the league. Education, our schools are the building block of our democracy, of our economy. And so what I'm going to be showing here is what we feel needs to be created in order to make sure that even in Colorado, land of Tabor, we are able to make the investments we need in the public good that is public education. So Great Education Colorado, for those of you who don't know, I do know a lot of you, and there are a lot of the folks on this call represent a whole lot of signatures gathered and legislators contacted. Our vision is through public education, every student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or color of their skin, that every student in Colorado graduates ready to lead their best life. And our mission, which is a little different than it was until this is the result of a strategic plan just about a year ago, is that we harness the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And for those of you who have known us for a long time, we have been talking about equitable and adequate funding and have always wanted to find a way to braid equity in more, and especially the idea that when we do have more funding that's more equitable coming from the state, that it needs to be spent in ways that are the most effective and really directed by the people who are most impacted, and the students and families who have been most marginalized over time, to really make sure that we're reaching that vision of every student succeeding and every student feeling welcome. So that's our North Star. Through public education, every student succeeds, every student graduates ready to lead their best life. So I'm going to start off with a question, and I'm going to let you answer it if you are so inclined. But so what are the conditions that make it possible for us to ensure that every student gets the education, the resources, and the support that they need so that they can graduate ready to lead their best life? If you guys feel like participatory here, I can just sort of wail through if you like. What's your preference?
I can say
Tabor.
Getting rid of Tabor, we'll get there for sure. So I can't see you, but I know that was Sally.
I think one thing that a child needs, that any child, any human being needs, is to know that people care, that they are successful, that they can, that they're competent, that they will give them support. but that they really care about them. And that makes a huge difference in their motivation to persevere.
Well
And
said.
yeah, I was going to add too, I don't know, it's always one of mine on my big list, that certainly well-prepared educators, leaders, staff, everybody that is part of the educational environment is there to be supportive and knowledgeable about what their roles and responsibilities are.
Appreciate that very much.
And that also
Anyone?
includes teachers having the professional development that's ongoing that they need, so that they have that support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially as the needs of students change, the professional development that we need to make sure that teachers know how to meet those needs and be culturally competent or greater.
Mhm.
So I'll go on here to what just sort of a general thing that we've come to is what we know. And I think these all got captured in what you said: positive, inclusive, and healthy district and school cultures where students feel welcome, seen, safe, supported, and academically challenged. And that gets to what you said, I think was Kathy, of that knowing that they're cared about. We need the right number of adults in every public school building to meet the academic, social, and emotional needs of diverse students. That gets to what I think Barbara said, and the need to continually allow teachers to perfect their craft and meet the needs of students, so that professional development. And we need supportive communities that value public education as a public good, not as a commodity, but as something that all of us, whether we have children, grandchildren, or no relations in schools right now, we all have that that real interest in what our schools are doing, what they're teaching, how they're treating our children, and the outcomes. So the next question is, what's getting in the way? Sally jumped ahead, but the three sort of categories that the obstacles that we see fall into are chronic and severe underfunding as a result of Colorado's fiscal restrictions, TABOR, privatization and voucher efforts, and this narrative that choice is the most important thing, and that parents' rights are the most important thing, and that it gets down to every parent should have their choice, and the state should pay for that choice regardless of whether that's public, private, home, or Ed's Bar, Grill, and K-12 Emporium. I didn't mean to say Ed, Sally. That was out of the blue. And the last is a very well coordinated and well funded effort to halt and reverse progress toward equity. And we all know what that means. That means, just for shorthand, Moms for Liberty and the Koch brother and the whole set of institutions that support what's supposed to look like grassroots, but is in fact a global, not global, but a national set of donors who have been working toward privatization for a very long time. So just quick context: underfunding, you probably have all seen this. We're underfunding our schools. One way to look at it is how far behind the national average we are. And we've, woohoo, we've made progress toward 50, what is it? It looks like 1900 below the national average per pupil. And if you look at how we rate in terms of regional cost differences, it is as high as $2,500 per pupil behind the national average. And there's all sorts of other ways that we can measure it, like we have the least competitive teacher wages in the nation, and that over the last 15 years, we've cut $10 billion out of schools below what the Constitution requires, and just keeping up with inflation. So all of these things, by the way, I'm going to plow through them, and then we'll have time to focus on the things that you could really want to get down to. The privatization issue right now in Colorado, this is Initiative 138. It has title. It has not yet pulled petitions. but we have every reason to believe that Michael Fields is going to want to put this on the ballot to drive conservative voters, and because they believe that this is a good idea, an amendment to the Constitution establishing the right to school choice for children in kindergarten through 12th grade, declaring that school choice includes neighborhood, charter, private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment choices, and future, quote, innovations in education, meaning that once it's a constitutional right, obviously a parent should be able to get paid for wherever they send their child, even if that is a place that discriminates on the basis of just about any LGBT, any identities. So that's what the obstacle looks like right now. And this is the anti-equity school board members and the attacks that we've had. This is to the best of my knowledge right now, the big fires are where there is an anti-equity majority, and the small fire is where there's at least one anti-equity board minority member, so they're in the minority. Barbara, you've been watching Greeley, and you know how much damage just one person can do in derailing and taking the attention of the superintendent from the excellent work they're doing to create a board to go over every book that has been criticized in the that has been called out by the Moms for Liberty types. So, and I can go back to any of these later. So how do we fight these fires? The opportunity that we have is in harnessing the energy of all the people throughout the state, all the league members throughout the state, all the PTA members, all the folks who step up at times of mill levy elections and school board elections. So many people who have been working on this, fighting for this future, but in silos and frequently only when there's a crisis or a particular election happening. And so there's no sustainability of it. So what Great Ed is working on, and what Kathy talked about that we first unveiled at our summit last year, is this idea of a network of networks. This is not a coalition where everybody will at any time get in a room or even on a Zoom screen to say, okay, what's our policy going to be? The policies are going to be very important in this network of networks. The idea is that we're connecting all of those public education supporters and organizations that work in this area of protecting and promoting public education and welcoming schools for all. That we come together, we learn together, we are able to tell each other, mentor each other, and learn about the connections between why if you care about privatization, you also need to care about funding. And if you care about funding, you also need to care about who is in running the school districts and what kind of culture is being created in your district. And getting rid of all of those obstacles that we just went over through having common messaging and collaboration and skill building and webinars and toolkits and connections to expertise, a real resource hub where people can engage online, and then find each other and engage, in person and in learning from each other. So that's what the Every Student Welcome Network is looking to be. Creating the infrastructure for a durable movement for inclusive, equitable public education, assisting in finding, identifying, recruiting potential school board members and getting them knowledgeable about what it means to be on a school board, until, and this is all C3 work, until they're ready to go outside once they've declared and get more training. Fostering collective advocacy. So, a lot of ways we think about this as, for those of you who collected signatures for Amendment 73, which would have created a progressive income tax, or for Initiative 63, that would have taken part of the Tabor surplus and put it into teachers and support service salaries. This is trying to put together what we wish we had when we were working on those issues, so that we have a way to talk to geographically and demographically different organizations and individuals across the state to say, hey, we've been learning together. You know that funding matters. Here's something simple you can do. And for this year, it could be, we all care about this. It looks like they're trying to put this anti-voucher system, voucher thing, or a income tax cut. Here's the messaging for a decline to sign that you can send it out to all of your friends, to all of your constituents. So this is where, if you scan this, you can sign our Every Student Welcome pledge, which just is saying, I'll vote and act to ensure that every student in my district and in Colorado feels welcome and in their public schools. What that does when you sign up for that is puts you into a newsletter that's going to be specifically about Every Student Welcome Network. It's kind of starting slowly, but we're asking people to give us input to what resources that we should add to we'll have a website in a couple of months, but in the meantime, we're getting the message out through newsletters. So I'm going to pause there for a second to make sure that everybody who wanted to has gotten that link. Some of you have already did. You can also find it just by going to greateducation.org. So, and I'll bring it back later if you want. And this is just the context of what's happening, partly as a result of that school finance task force that I sat on, that there is a lot of talk about changing the School Finance Act. The legislature this year will eliminate the BS factor, which is the way that they cut that $10 billion I referenced out of school funding over the last 15 years, below what we required in Amendment 23, or at least what those of us who passed it believed we were requiring in 2000 when we passed 23. One of the most important things we want to do this year in the legislature is convey to the governor, who has been saying this, and to the legislature and to the world in general, that when you say that we have gotten rid of that budget stabilization factor, the BS factor, it does not mean that we are fully funding our schools. And as a matter of fact, now that we've gotten rid of the BS factor, all it means is that we have finally gotten back to what we were spending per pupil adjusted for inflation in 1989, which you will recall is before computers in every profession, in every location, and smartphones. It's before we had standards. And so the demands and the healthcare costs and the energy costs that are not accounted for in the consumer price index, which is what this measure uses, we are nowhere near the kind of investment that we need to be at, looking back to 1989. Now, the good news is we got the legislature to commission a study, 2 studies actually, that will be funded well enough to actually do the work right, to find out what would it actually cost to meet the needs of every student, no matter where they are, their special education needs, their language needs. How much would it really cost in all the different parts of our state to get students to meet the standards that the legislature has set? And we think that a new, hopefully more equitable school funding formula, well, we know it's needed. We think it's going to be, the legislature is looking at it, but there's no new funding for it. And we know our task force found that we need at least, and that is at least is a very important set of words, about $500 million to do just some of the recommendations that the task force agreed that we needed. And so what we know we're going to need, in addition to that new, more equitable school funding formula that meets the needs of the students of special ed, English language learning, rural, and kids in poverty, we're going to need new money. So I'm just putting up these 2 for a second here, and I can bring them back up later. But if you got a group, if there's a local league that would like a presentation, that's the code on the left. And our advocates network, which Kathy and Sally are among our regulars, and I know there are some others here who come frequently. Barbara does. Please sign up for that. That's kind of our gateway to advocacy, and please pass that along to your friends. All of these things you can also find on our website by navigating along the top bars. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and let's talk.
I think I can put like that, the QR codes that you had. We have the Education Task Force has a web page. And I think I can put that as a resource on there. For
All
people.
right, and I will share these slides with you right now, Kathy.
Great, great, thank you. I have a
Right here.
comment that somebody had made about funding and local funding here in Loveland. Probably a couple of months ago, not long after the last election. And it just kind of resonated with me. And they were talking about local school funding and why that gets voted down so much. And somebody said, well, you know what's happening. That they were wondering if what was happening was because of the metro districts in this area and just how much people were paying now within the metro districts. And it was like, it had gone up so much. Are they seeing, I can't pay anymore, and so I'm not gonna, okay, funding?
That's a great question, and it's actually the conventional wisdom until recently was you'll never pass anything at the state level.
Hmm.
It's only at the local level where people trust that the dollars are being spent. The closer you get to the voter, the more likely they support. And that has been traditionally true, that we haven't passed an education funding thing at the state level yet, and that it's done at the local level. The big issue, everything's about context. If you were to compare Colorado taxes to most states, we're among the lowest property tax states in the nation. You get somebody who's moving here from New Jersey or Michigan, and they're like, is this for just a month? What are you talking about? This is incredible. But when you have John Caldera and the word out there that, and just this mantra of taxes are always too high, what happened in the last 2 years, and especially with COVID, when like just residential property rates just skyrocketed, is that everybody's the assessment rate stopped going down because we repealed Gallagher. And so the assessment rate is just the percent of the value of our house that we actually pay taxes on. And in Colorado, right now it's about 6.8%. So just think about your house and you're paying taxes on like maybe your biggest bathroom is the amount. So when the value of property goes up and the assessment rate stays the same, because with Gallagher, the assessment rate would have dropped. But when the assessment stays the same, and suddenly they're telling you your house is worth $200,000 more than it was the last time we assessed it, then your property tax goes up. The actual taxes that you owe go up. So did you all see that happen in your taxes? And so, we can get into that whole property tax thing, because that's a very different question than what you asked, Kathy. But I do think that people are being told that their property taxes are going up a lot. It gets divided up 12 ways for anybody with a mortgage, right? Because you're just putting money into your escrow. So not a lot of people are writing that check with the AUGA number. But I don't know if I should I'm just going to be in the dark here. so that, to get to your point, people do feel like they're paying more taxes because the value of their property went up. And there's one way you can look at that and say, yay, the value of my property went up $200,000, but that's not a liquid asset. And it is difficult for a lot of families. So it may be that that is weighing on people in local elections more recently. But we do still see that the majority of mill levies and bonds still do pass, but there are some districts that have tried and tried and tried. You know, Barbara and I are from Greeley, where until whatever it was, 2018, Greeley had never, ever, ever, ever passed one, and there are a lot of districts still in that position. If you guys want to go into the morass of property taxes, happy to talk about that. But I know there were a lot of other things that I touched on that may be of interest. Barbara?
Yeah. Well, here's, I really appreciate, thank you, Lisa, for your program in the dark. Listen, I listened to another series, a lecture series last week where the woman got stuck and didn't get to her house on time. So it was the same situation. So I'm familiar with talking to the dark, but anyway, I guess I need to share this with you too, that I really appreciate that idea of collecting resources and things that everybody can access to help move the needle in their school district with whatever it is they need to do and what they're trying to accomplish. But we had a group of people a few years ago that were really concerned about the school board issue and all the things that have been taking place with the school boards in all of our communities. And we kept saying, we got to learn the playbook of what's going on. And the other part I'm thinking is, well, what's our playbook? So I guess I'm asking, and the things I need to send to you and Kathy, which I hadn't done yet. My brother sent me this article about a school district back east in Pennsylvania. That it's a very lengthy article, but it's excellent. It talks about how they ran into the situation much like Woodland Park, and slowly but surely got their school district back. So I mean, I think some examples and some collaboration outside of the state, maybe with some other groups who have been successful in taking on the book banning, the school board issues, and how we can strategize about that would be helpful.
That is a great question, and I am really happy to tell you that there are so many national resources. I have been fortunate in just the last 5 months to be connected with a couple of national organizations who do messaging and who do parent training and school board candidate training and provide messaging. And so that's exactly what the Every Student Welcome Network is trying to do, is to just make people aware of that, to like connect the pipeline between folks who are working locally to the folks statewide. You think about Susan Meek, who has been, she is on the Douglas County School Board. She did 2 years. She was in the majority and were able to create an equity policy. Then she was in 2 years in the minority. And she learned a heck of a lot about how to defend public education and equity, even if you're in the minority. Now you got new school board members elected in 2023 who could learn a lot from Susan and the folks who did that. But there's also, we're connected. It's like this whole world opened up to I am on Zoom meetings with my counterparts from Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida. I've been to a couple. There's like this whole community that Colorado has been in the dark, and the reason, even more than I, and the reason is because we're not Florida. And we're not Tennessee, and we're not Texas. And so a lot of people have been focusing on the places where the legislature is doing horrible things, and we don't have that happening. So what we're trying to do is create, I see the Every Student Welcome Network as a pilot project, and I'm hoping we're going to get connected to national funding for this too.
Excellent.
To say, what do you do in a state where you're not on fire at the state level, but you do have pockets of fire where you need to prepare people and help them message and elect better people. But you also have good folks who got elected
Mhm.
who it's not enough to not ban books. It's not enough to not chill speech in schools, because that's happening statewide. Teachers are worried, even if it's not happening in their own district. You got to move forward. So what if Colorado can be the pilot project to show how you can not just play defense as we have for so long, but really go on the offense in finding the right messaging and the right tactics and the right policies that really do start creating welcoming schools, whether that's creating community schools or the it's assistance in curriculum so that our districts actually implement the really good social studies standards that we were able to get through the Department of Education. I did not know that there is no enforcement mechanism.
Yeah.
The Department of Education has no enforcement mechanism. So when Woodland Park throws aside the Colorado standards and adopts the birthright standards that talk about saluting the perfection of the founding fathers, there's nothing that can be done. What can be done is that we educate and prepare and train parents and teachers
Mhm.
and school board members, and those parents and teachers can support school board members so that they feel the courage
Right.
to do the right thing, in knowing that the Moms for Liberty, although I don't know if you all have heard about the scandal with Moms for Liberty, so I think they're going to change their branding a little bit, but those folks have been intimidating school boards. And we need to, we're working on something called Public School Strong, where with the national organization, where it's like you go with your t-shirt, and when you go, you bring other people, you tweet out of it, you post on Facebook that you're there. And so the good guys know that they've got cover, and the bad guys know that they're being watched.
Good. Love it.
Barbara, this is exactly what you've laid out, is exactly what we're trying to create.
Excellent. I'm all on board.
Well, and let me tell you, as one who has followed all of this for way too long, we may be on fire soon. It was interesting to hear about the initiative for vouchers, but one of the things I have noticed recently is private schools popping up here in schools that I didn't see existing 3 or 4 years ago. And because I follow the school board stuff and who's funding the candidates, the big money is closing in on Colorado in a really big way. And I find it terrifying for our kids, for our, I now have a daughter who's teaching, and I'm, it's panicking me. But what Lisa does is really important. I suggest you follow A for PEP, which is, I can never remember, it's like Alliance for Public Education Policy. I just watched one of their sessions. They've been doing these information sessions. And you can go to their website and watch them. Paula Noonan.
Paula.
Yeah.
Not Peggy. Peggy has another job.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, Paula Noonan has gone into the state, what is it, where they evaluate schools and districts stuff. And she just has done a magnificent job. I mean, there are people in pockets doing things, and
Exactly.
pulling it together is huge. It's huge. So that's all I have to say.
It'd be interesting to have like fact sheets points that you could pull out of information, like Paula has done in that situation, or these other, allied groups that we may know about or be in, so that when we get an attack on our local public school or during the campaign, we have something we can come back with right away.
And
Great Ed
that's
had
what
a great little card that had the the chart that that Lisa just showed.
Mhm.
An update of that. I mean, you could just pull it out and hand it to people. It was great.
Mhm.
and that's what we're hoping to do with our website. And I want to be clear about a couple of things. One is that the Every Student Welcome Network is not Great Ed's, and we are working to co-create it, to find out what would add value to all these different organizations' work and their lives. So it's not just I got yet another thing, and one more meeting I'm supposed to go to, one more thing pinging me on my phone telling me I have a notification. So we want to figure that out. We want to figure out what it means to get inside. We're going to create a communications platform for this. It may be platforms because people are so different. If we told the students who we've been working with to organize that they have to get on Facebook, I think we would be laughed out of the state.
Yep.
So we got to meet people where they are, but we're co-creating that, and we're trying to really make sure that this is durable and that a lot of people feel ownership. And we're trying to raise enough money that we can support some of the organizations who will be dedicating some time. And one of those things that we need from a lot of different perspectives is that subject matter expertise, so that we can uh, get the messaging points on, CRT is over. They're not talking about CRT anymore. They've moved to parents' rights and attacking transgender kids, and should boys be able to play girls' sports and all those things so we need, that's going to change of what we need those talking points about, except that the big picture of, we want a Colorado where every student can thrive, where no matter who they are, those kind of talking. But what we want is subject matter experts who can provide for our website. And we'll have this newsletter and website we have for everybody in the public. So a Mom for Liberty could find it. And, we just have to be okay with everything we put on the website that will be seen by John Caldera and, the bad guys. But inside, to really have this resource hub where we can have just a great set of toolkits. And a lot of it really can be public. Like, do you need to have talking points about LGBTQ students and how you make them feel welcome? Do you want a policy, find out a policy about how to make students who are twice exceptional feel more welcome? A lot of that we'll have on the website, and we want the experts to be telling us what to put up instead of us pretending. We'll do the fiscal policy and the voucher stuff and the school finance stuff, because that's our wheelhouse. But we want to bring in all those other experts. The ACLU, is this thing that just happened at my school legal? How do I connect to somebody who can stand up for my child? The arc of Colorado. So that's our goal, is to make sure that there's those talking points, but also toolkits and webinars that are available to folks when they need them, and then a place to talk about it and say, hey, this just happened in my school district. I'll actually give an example of why I love this idea of, like, whether it's discussion boards or whatever. I belong to a Facebook group called Executive Director Happy Hour. And it is a place where executive directors all over the country vent about things that are driving them crazy, but also have questions. And so, for the first time last week, I was realizing we needed to figure out a new system for keeping track of, medical leave and PTO. And so I just typed this question in. We're just starting. We're an organization of 8 people. What works? And I did that at night, and in the morning I had like 7 answers. We use Clockify. We use QuickBooks. We use this, and it is the number of times I see something on that particular Facebook page that's like, oh my God, I'm facing exactly that. And now I have 7 people who are giving recommendations, and some people saying, direct message me. I had exactly this. Let's talk. Is like just on that little thing that I had going on. Imagine if school board members say, okay, these guys with tactical jackets came in. Has anybody else seen these guys? How do you deal with it? That you could have people responding to you. So that's the network of networks and the power of bringing people together to learn together. And that was a way long explanation or answer to a question. I think I've strayed. So I want to get back to questions. Anything about the legislature, about the School Finance Act, about uh, uh, the task force, you name it.
No, tell us a little bit. I know I'm familiar because I've been on the great education things, but a little bit more about the task force and finding out about what the cost of educating a student in Colorado means and what you're looking for.
So I was very well, let's be honest, I campaigned to get on this task force, so I was very happy that I could. Um, and I was skeptical that we would be able to come up with anything, especially when you had the executive director of Ready Colorado, who is against every tax, any tax measure, any increase in funding, and was supporting a lot of those really right-wing candidates for school board. How are we going to get to a place where we have agreement? And I'm very impressed, and I am a little fearful. So the impressed part is that we got to a place where our recommendations would acknowledge that we need both student factors and district factors. There are some that just wanted to get rid of all district factors. It's like we should, and the reason is this: there are people on there who want to get to, and who are like appointed by Paul Lundeen, who wanted to get to full privatization. And so they keep using the phrase, we should fund students, not systems. And it sounds really good. And so they wanted all the money to go toward at-risk students and ELL students, although probably not, special education, and take away from these things that fund the systems, the cost of living and the size factor, not realizing that the reason that you give some districts more money is because it costs more to provide the same services. Or so all that is to say, we ended up with a finance formula that puts more into students than districts, but did acknowledge the need to do both. And there are 2 kinds of recommendations. One was things like, do not cherry pick this. We thought about all these things together. And so don't decide that you're going to do these 3 things that will cut funding from some schools and do this one thing that's going to add some money back. We are not interested in creating winners and losers. You got to look at the whole thing. Another general one was we need to increase the base funding. Our base funding does not reflect anything other than that it is increased by inflation since we passed Amendment 23 in the year 2000. And at that time, it reflected nothing, not the cost. It was reflecting historically what Colorado could afford or felt like they could afford to send to schools. And so everybody agreed, except one person, that we should increase the base. And then we increased funding for a number of that increased funding for special education, English language learner, and poverty. And it all comes to an increase in $474 million without taking into account the increased base. So what we those of us who are in this sort of practitioner school funding world got them to say at least $474 million. So the number one thing that I want everybody to know from this task force that was appointed by it was in a bipartisan way by majority and minority leaders, all agreed we need at least $500 million more in our schools. That has never happened. And so what I keep saying is, people have been saying to us, it's not how much you spend, it's how you spend it. And we've been saying, no, like anything from a meal to a car to a house, it's how you spend, how much you spend. And so now, like, this woman who is the head of Ready Colorado has signed her name to a set of recommendations that requires another $500 million. But there are a lot. We also said there needs to be a cost of living or a cost of doing business, something that really gets at how much does it cost to keep a teacher in this district versus that district, and how much does it cost to fix an HVAC system in Yuma versus Denver. And to get at those real costs. And so we made that recommendation, but people aren't looking at it because it wasn't factored into when they did these runs to figure out which districts get how much money. So if you don't add money to the base and you don't look into that cost of doing business, when you run the formula that came out of the really specific recommendations, that adds $474 million, but there are 14 districts that actually lose money.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote a couple of minority reports, which made that point. We're talking about adding $500 million, and some districts are going to get less, which would imply that they are currently adequately funded, which is demonstrably false. And so this was a really good start, but it is not a school finance act. There still needs to be a lot of work. And most importantly, there's going to need to be a lot more money. And what I want to start doing is pushing our legislators to recognize you're going to have to figure this out. You're going to have to start planning for more money, because what they're talking about now is passing something this year that would implement all the things that cut money. And so, well, it's basically everything except our addition to special education, which is about $500 million. And so it will create huge winners and losers. And at first I was freaked out about this, that the speaker is talking about passing a school finance formula without more money. But now I'm just thinking, bring it on. You come and tell these districts that the way the numbers come out doesn't make any sense of who wins and who loses, because you need a lot more information. And where are we going to get that information? We're going to get it from the adequacy study, which it's hard to scream from the rooftops. One of Great Education Colorado's greatest legislative victories is that we got a provision in the School Finance Act to do a costing out study, actually 2 costing out studies. They did not appropriate the necessary money for it. And so this year we worked with Shannon Bird and got full funding for these adequacy studies that are going to say, here's how much it costs to meet the needs of these kind of students in these kinds of districts. And here's the amount that you need for a base that actually reflects the amount of money you need to get a student without any special characteristics in a district without any special characteristics to standards. The last time a study was done, not by the state, but for the Lobato lawsuit, the base was $2,000 too low.
No.
That's going to make a big difference when you've got 850,000 students. And so that adequacy study is going to come out at the end of this year. And we have a lot of legislators who've been saying, you keep saying you want more money, but for what? What are you going to do with the money? Where do you need the money? And we're going to be able to say right here, 5 out of the 6 joint budget committee members voted to adequately fund these studies, including both Republicans. And so, they finally asked. I think they didn't know what they were asking for, and that is great because the truth will out. So that's, like I said, a lot of explanation to say, hey, we got an adequacy study commissioned and funded. Yay us. But we've been working on it for over a decade to get them to do this.
Well, Lisa,
We are really close to time. Or
yeah,
is it 1 now?
it's 6:29. So
Here, I'm going to do this. Just so you know, I'm still here. Here, I'm still here. Looks like The Shining, doesn't it?
that's great.
But anyway, still here. Thank you.
No,
But so,
thank you.
please, if you haven't, did everybody get those QR codes? Did everybody who wanted them get them?
Yes.
We will be including the league, if you are so inclined, in the Every Student Welcome Network. I have to, one last thing I have to say is that we did a lot of work this year. We didn't have a lot of funding for it this year. I hope we will in the future to help inform people in districts around the state about the the school board candidates. And like you, we are a 501c3. We do not endorse, but we had questions that I know a lot of the leagues use some of those questions. Kathy mentioned that once, and it was another one of my happy moments of that what we put out there was helpful. But what you all did in having those forums, those were the most important forums in the most important districts. And it's one of those things, just think about where we'd be if it weren't for what you guys do. And I think you were very instrumental in getting the word out, giving people the opportunity to understand the difference between the candidates when they tried to use words and phrases that sounded good. And so thank you for your work in making sure that we didn't lose more of those school districts. And we prevailed in most of them. So thank you.
Well, I look forward to continuing the association. You are a partner organization for us. And I congratulate you on being so stalwart during this last hour and doing this awesome presentation. So thank you.
I read Little House on the Prairie, so this just feels like,
Now,
if this is roughing it,
Lisa's
I'm
a
in a
pro.
pretty good space.
You're a pro, Lisa.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so
Now,
much.
Now I have to go back to my husband, who I just left with a car in the middle of the street. So I got to go do something really nice for him now.
Yes.
I hope you have AAA.
Yeah.
We do. I called that, and the cop just came up right before Steve came to the car, and he said, "The car's over there. Here's the key." So that's
Okay, well,
here.
good luck and be
Thank you all.
safe going home.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. And have a great
Thanks.
evening, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thanks,
Thank
Lisa.
you
You were
for-
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, and please have us come other places, anywhere, book groups, anything. We want to get this word out.
All right.
Will do.
Thank
you.
you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
Night.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yep.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.